How are Donald Trump and Joe Biden preparing for next week's debate, which is increasingly shaping up to be extraordinarily controversial? I have to admit, when these debates were first announced, it did not strike me that these would have a large audience, nor that they would really make much of a difference. Debates tend not to make much of a difference. However, because of the building counter narratives or conflicting narratives about who's the most demented among the two presidential candidates, I actually think the audience is going to be huge. And I think that if either candidate really fails to perform, it will be massively consequential. Now, how are each of the candidates preparing here? Well, we learned this morning, as ABC News reports, that President Biden is heading to Camp David to prepare for the first presidential debate with Donald Trump. It is likely going to be mock debate scenarios with people standing in as Trump. I can only assume that the people around Biden who know what to expect from Trump are going to play through scenarios in which Trump tries to interrupt, in which Trump makes various allegations. I would prepare for Biden to be hit with allegations from Trump that Biden is suffering cognitively. Biden will probably be prepped to go back very specifically with things like, my opponent thinks you need an ID to buy bread, and he called me Joe Bride the other day and can't even remember the name of the doctor that gave him the dementia test. I'm not the guy you need to worry about. It's my opponent. Anyway, stuff like that. But more importantly, my hope is, let me see how I can say this. It's very difficult to debate a guy like Donald Trump substantively because there is no substance. If your plan is, well, I'll just listen to each thing that Trump says and then try to reply directly and substantively to the specifics, it won't work because Trump will talk over you and he'll shift to something different. So my thought on the best strategy for someone like Joe Biden here is to have, listen, it's a 90-minute debate. The format is very restrictive. I believe there's going to be 2 commercial breaks. So it'll be 90 minutes minus whatever. I think opening and closing statements. So if I were Biden, I would look at the 12 to 15 topics most likely to come up and have the strongest possible way to position your view over Trump's view and to attack Trump's view. So again, if I were prepping Biden, and I'm not a professional in this, but the way I would think about it is, if anything regarding contraception, abortion, or women's rights comes up, here's how you answer the question. If anything regarding foreign policy comes up, here's how you answer the question. And prep those 12 to 15 things, because Trump isn't going to make any sense with his sort of verbal ink blot on any issue. And no matter what you say, he's going to try to come back at you either with ad hominems or non sequiturs. So the way I would prepare is, rather than trying to think through every possible back and forth, it's what are my 12 to 15 points that I need to hit on every important issue: democracy, women's bodily autonomy, foreign policy, taxation, inflation, whatever. I hope that at least some element of that is the way that Joe Biden is going to be prepping. Now, what about Donald Trump's prep? There's a real problem with Donald Trump's prep. And the problem is Trump's cognitive state. There are conflicting reports about how Trump is preparing. Let's listen to this report from the New York Times' Maggie Haberman.
In public, his aides often downplay the prep that he does. Right. He's been doing not standard debate prep. He doesn't have stand-ins as of now for Biden in these debates.
So he's not doing mock debates.
He's not doing mock debates. No, that could certainly change. But he's been doing what they've been describing as policy time, where they bring in different people to brief him. A bunch of senators have come in. Last week, Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Eric Schmidt both briefed him at the RNC headquarters after his meetings with lawmakers around Capitol Hill, which was his first major meeting with party members since he became the presumptive nominee. And they are focusing on various issues that could come up: abortion, healthcare, energy, COVID, and then very specifically, and this was one thing that came up last Thursday, what Trump will say when asked January 6th related questions, particularly his statements about pardoning some of the people who were arrested in connection with the violence that day.
So what Maggie Haberman is describing is a version of what I'm suggesting Joe Biden do, which is you've got to be ready on a number of different policy issues to know what your approach is going to be. The problem that they are experiencing with Trump, without a doubt, is Trump, number one, thinks he knows more and is better than everybody. And so he is naturally going to be resistant to accepting that the people around him are actually telling him the right way to approach these issues. Number two, Trump does not actually understand the majority of these issues. That's a real problem. When he does, The guy still doesn't even know how tariffs work. So that's certainly going to be an obstacle to actually getting all of this right. And then number three, and importantly, we know from Trump's meetings with reporters and CEOs and aides and staffers and everybody else, Trump cannot focus at all. And whether it's cognitive decline or an attention deficit issue or whatever, this is increasingly an obstacle for Trump to really be able to sit down and substantively think through a bunch of these issues. So I'm curious as to whether we will get any feedback or leaked information from, I went in there, I was supposed to talk to him about X. It was essentially impossible because the guy just does not listen. He's off the wall. He's incoherent. He doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, I'm extraordinarily curious what ultimately the results will be next Thursday. It continues to be the case that on Fox News, they are lowering expectations, not for Joe Biden, as they've erroneously done in the past, but they are lowering expectations for Donald Trump. And I want to talk about that next. The weather is warming up. We're outside more. Maybe we're trying to get in shape for summer. If you're in need of a science-based, no BS workout program that's easy to follow and will give you results you feel good about, look no further than our sponsor, Alpha Progression. Alpha Progression was recognized not once, but twice as Apple's App of the Day. It's just a great value. It has an easy-to-use interface. It's totally customizable based on your needs. And it has a 4.9 star rating in both Apple and Google app stores from tens of thousands of reviews. Alpha Progression is the app for anyone looking to maximize muscle gain. That's their only focus, but it's designed to be perfect for both novices and seasoned lifters alike. Every workout plan is built from scratch just for you personally and catered to your individual goals. Alpha Progression was carefully designed over many years by veteran bodybuilders to give you the same principles and the tailored advice that you'd get from a personal trainer who charges 30 times more with the same results at a fraction of the price. We're partnering with Alpha Progression to give you 20% off your first year when you sign up for annual, or 20% off your first month if you sign up for monthly. Go to alphaprogression.com/Pacman. The link is in the description.